On the morning of May 30th, 1431, a 19-year-old girl was dragged through the streets of Rouen, France. Her head was shaved. She was wearing a long, simple dress. A crowd of thousands gathered to watch her die. Soldiers tied her to a tall wooden pillar. The executioner lit the fire. As the flames rose higher, she didn't scream for mercy. She didn't curse her enemies. Instead, she screamed one name over and over again: Jesus, Jesus. This girl was Joan of Arc. Today, she is a saint. But on that day, she was burned as a witch, a heretic, and a liar. How did an illiterate farm girl become the most feared warrior in Europe, only to end up in ashes before her 20th birthday? This is her tragic story. To understand her death, we must go back to the beginning. Joan was born in a small village called Domremy. She couldn't read or write. She spent her days spinning wool and watching sheep. But at age 13, something terrified her. She was standing in her father's garden at noon, when suddenly a bright light appeared. She heard a voice. It told her, "Be good, Joan." Over time, the voices returned. They became clearer. She claimed they were St. Michael, St. Catherine, and St. Margaret. Modern doctors and psychologists have a different theory. They suggest Joan might have had schizophrenia or temporal lobe epilepsy. These conditions can cause auditory hallucinations and blinding lights. But Joan didn't know about mental illness. She believed it was God, and the voices gave her an impossible mission: go to the king, save France, drive out the English. Imagine a 16-year-old peasant girl walking up to a military commander and demanding an army. They laughed at her. They told her father to take her home and beat her. But she refused to leave. She predicted a military defeat days before the news arrived. The soldiers started to believe she had supernatural knowledge. Finally, they granted her a meeting with the Crown Prince, Charles VII. But the prince was suspicious. Was she a witch? An assassin? He decided to test her. He hid himself in the crowd of nobles and put a fake man on the throne. When Joan walked in, she ignored the man on the throne. She walked straight to the real Charles, who was hiding in the corner, and bowed to him. Charles was shocked. He took her to a private room. Nobody knows what she whispered to him, but when he came out, his face was pale. He gave her the army. Now, the teenage girl was leading thousands of rough, violent men. She cut her hair short like a boy. She wore white armor. She carried a white banner. She didn't just sit in the back. At the siege of Orleans, she charged into the front lines. During the battle, an arrow pierced her shoulder. Most men would have been carried off the field. But Joan pulled the arrow out herself, cried for a moment, and then climbed back onto the ladder to lead the assault. The English soldiers were terrified. They thought she was a demon who couldn't be killed. In just a few months, this peasant girl did what professional generals couldn't do for years. She crowned the king. She saved France. She was a hero. But in the Game of Thrones, heroes are dangerous. King Charles had his crown now. He didn't need Joan anymore. In fact, she was becoming too powerful. She wanted to keep fighting to free Paris, but the king wanted peace treaties. During a battle near Compiègne, the city gates were closed too early. Joan was locked outside, surrounded by the enemy. She was pulled off her horse and captured by the Burgundians, who sold her to the English. This is the most tragic part. The King of France, the man she saved, the man she put on the throne, did nothing. He didn't offer a ransom. He didn't send an army to rescue her. He let her rot in a dark cell. The English wanted to kill her, but they needed a reason. They couldn't just execute a prisoner of war. They had to prove she was a witch. For months, she was interrogated by 50 corrupt judges and priests. She was uneducated, yet she outsmarted them all. They tried to trap her with a trick question. "Do you know if you are in God's grace?" It was a trap. She said yes. It was heresy because no human can know for sure. She said no. She confessed to being a sinner. Joan replied, "If I am not, may God put me there. If I am, may God so keep me." The judges were stunned. They couldn't find any crime, so they found a loophole. They charged her for cross-dressing. In the Bible, it was forbidden for women to wear men's clothes. Joan wore pants in prison to protect herself from being raped by the guards. They used this desperate act of self-defense to sentence her to death. Back to the fire. They burned her body 3 times to make sure nothing was left. They threw her ashes into the Seine River so no one could worship her grave. She was 19 years old. 20 years later, a new trial declared her innocent. In 1920, she was made a saint. Today, statues of Joan of Arc stand all over France. But the king who betrayed her, he is mostly forgotten. The girl who heard voices ended up screaming in the flames, but her legacy burned brighter than the fire that killed her. What do you think? Was it mental illness or something divine? Let me know in the comments.